There's a lot going on at South Kensington. It's a phenomenally busy station served by the District, Circle and Piccadilly lines of the London Underground. But there's more to it than that. It has 3 abandoned platforms and a secret disused tunnel below the surface. It advertises at its entrance a service that hasn't run for decades. It has a whole building that passengers can't use. There's a lot of history here. The event that resulted in South Kensington being put on the map was the Great Exhibition of 1851 in nearby Hyde Park, which was held here. This was the brainchild of Prince Albert and was a great success. In fact, it was so successful that the money raised from it was used to build the Natural History Museum, the Science Museum, and, appropriately, the Victoria and Albert Museum. Equally appropriately, the street these are all on was named Exhibition Road. After Prince Albert's death in 1861, the Royal Albert Hall and Albert Memorial were put there, and as a result of all this, the area is nicknamed Albertopolis. Naturally, this was a place the Underground felt they should be serving, and when the Inner Circle, the Underground line now known as the Circle Line, was devised, it was inevitable that it would come here. The station opened on the 24th of December, 1868, just in time for the last Christmas shoppers. Originally, the station was built, as the ironwork at the entrance indicates, for both the Metropolitan and District Railways. The Inner Circle was a joint venture between these two companies, albeit not a remotely harmonious one. You may have noticed that there's a disused platform on one side of the station, and a large, empty, platform-looking space on the other side. That's because there were separate platforms for the two different companies. There was also a bay in the middle of the island platform where the garden bit and the steps to the Piccadilly line are now. This allowed Metropolitan trains to terminate here. District trains terminated a little way up at High Street, Kensington. Despite having their own platforms, the companies didn't get along at all, and a couple of major disputes centred on South Kensington. The first, in 1871, was over the fees the district had to pay to run their trains over the Metropolitan tracks between here and Gloucester Road. You'd think the sensible thing to do would be to take it to court, but the district's solution was to illegally build their own section of track known as the Cromwell Curve. Up until 1871, the district had been intended to merge with the Metropolitan, and the Met actually worked the trains over the district up until this point. The district also built their own separate station building at South Kensington so they wouldn't have to share a booking hall with those awful Metropolitan Railway boys. The second dispute was more minor, but no less absurd. There was a siding here that the district believed they had the right to use, but the Metropolitan disagreed. Again, rather than solve it like adults, the Metropolitan just towed the district's locomotives away whenever they were parked there. Then the district chained their engine to the track. Then the Metropolitan sent 3 locomotives to try to pull it away, and failed. I guess they didn't own a pair of bolt cutters. And then, and only then, did they take the matter to court. History really is stranger than fiction sometimes. One of the most notable features of South Kensington is the foot tunnel under Exhibition Road. This was originally proposed by the Metropolitan Railway in 1883, to run all the way to the Albert Hall, and would have included a cable-hauled tram. So that's another line that could have served South Kensington. The district, as you might expect, weren't going to have that and proposed their own subway, which would only go as far as the Science Museum and not include a tram. This was the scheme that received approval. Local residents had been complaining about how crowded the street above got with tube passengers visiting the various museums and events along Exhibition Road. So there was an argument for the public good. That didn't stop the District Railway from charging a penny to use the tunnel until 1908. In 1897, the district received authorization to build a new line, a deep-level tube express line running from Earl's Court to Mansion House in the city, calling along the way at Embankment, which in those days was Charing Cross. This was intended to relieve congestion on the already existing line. It was never completed. Instead, the district got bought out by Charles Yerkes, there's that man again, and his syndicate in 1901, and the old line was electrified. This meant that more and faster trains could be run, so there was no need for an express line anymore. However, there was a section of tunnel built at South Kensington in anticipation of it. I'm afraid I have no footage of it because I'm just some guy on YouTube and they don't let me wander round closed-off tunnels willy-nilly. Spoil sports. On the 8th of January 1907, the Great Northern Piccadilly and Brompton Railway started serving South Kensington. You would know this railway as the Piccadilly line. This was also part of Charles Yerke's empire, but legally it was a separate entity. Because of this, it got its own separate station building, designed by Leslie Green, which is still there. One unusual feature is that the east and westbound tunnels are constructed on top of each other. That was to leave space for that District Express line that I mentioned. I wonder if, in the long run, they intended to put an extra stop at South Kensington and maybe have cross-platform interchange. I don't know, that's literally just speculation on my part. The current station building, with the little shopping arcade, was built in 1907 and designed by George Sherrin. That unused District Express tunnel found a use during the First World War when treasures from the Victoria and Albert Museum and Buckingham Palace were stored here to protect them from air raids. After the war, it became a signalling school for underground staff. During the Second World War, those Victoria and Albert treasures were stored in the subway. In this conflict, the District Express tunnel was instead used as a monitoring station connected to hydrophones on the Thames riverbed, which would enable the monitors to detect delayed action bombs and alert their colleagues at stations near the river. Those stations were fitted with floodgates. The hydrophones themselves were actually made at Acton Works by the signalling department, which seems oddly appropriate given the previous use of that tunnel. London Transport's emergency engineering headquarters were also here, in the Piccadilly station. And while we're on the subject of the station in wartime, there was also an air raid precautions station under the Natural History Museum and connected to the subway. In 1957, the station was rebuilt somewhat. The District and Metropolitan Railways, as well as nearly all of the other underground lines, had been taken over by London Transport in 1933, which ended competition between them once and for all. In 1949, the Circle Line officially became its own separate entity on the map. As a result of this, it was decided that the extra platforms were unnecessary. Now there are only two. In 1973, the ticket hall was rebuilt to put the District and Piccadilly facilities in the same place. The old Piccadilly building is now offices. There was a proposal in 2003 to rebuild the station again in the form of a large glass building, a mixed-use development. Fortunately, local objections were sufficient to get this plan squashed. In 2016, a different proposal was made that would involve roofing over the station and sticking a bunch of buildings on top of that. Other proposals were made in 1989, 1997, 2006, and 2009. I wish people would stop making proposals like this. No one likes them except property developers, and they're everything that's wrong with modern London. So, what the future holds for South Kensington is a gruesome mystery. It's a busy and popular station, so some sort of rebuild may be unavoidable. Let's just enjoy it for now. Hold up, I've got a little addendum to make. This is me in the editing room. So this video has been put back by literally months for various reasons. Since I first made it, I've discovered a bit more about the plans, by which I mean there's literally a website called southkensingtonstation.co.uk that I somehow missed. Anyway, the plan according to this is a new retail and office space 4 to 5 stories high so as not to interfere with the character of the area. They also promise 50 new affordable homes, but it's not clear whether they mean actual affordable homes or for £200,000 you can own 5% of this studio flat affordable homes. Apparently the development is to be sustainable and heritage-led, preserving the original station building as much as possible. That is all. Good evening, I hope you enjoyed this heavily disputed tale from the tube. If you did, please do click the like button, and it may also please you to subscribe for more on the underground and other subjects that take my fancy. Thanks as always to my donors on Ko-fi and Patreon. You are the subway to my museums. and I'll see you all again very soon for another tale from the Tube.